Nigeria is a country of 250 ethnic nationalities. It is thus not surprising that there's a constant struggle for ethnic nationalities to assert themselves and seek relevance. And while suspicions triggered by stereotypes cannot be totally ruled out, for a major part of its existence as a country, Nigerians have lived together, tolerant of one another, but recent happenings are putting that at risk. The spillover of farmer-herder conflict into the southern part of the country and increase in banditry and kidnapping across the nation has raised mutual suspicions between ethnic groups to an all-time high. It is not helped by the fact that the identities of criminals engaged in this act are traced mostly to one ethnic nationality. In the early days of their emergence, many had called for the federal government to declare the Fulani herdsmen a terrorist group. On the other hand, the government's decision not to do so was understandable. Government could not tag the bandits engaged in rustling, raising of villages, and kidnapping for ransom to a particular ethnic nationality. That would be ethnic profiling. But there's a more sinister design if the federal government is to be taken by its word. It insists that there are political players deliberately fueling the rise in banditry for their own political gains, whom President Muhammadu Buhari describes as a small number of people with resources and influence that are a nuisance to this great country, and promises they will be identified and dealt with. And so Nigeria, at this phase of its development, finds itself in a quandary. What must government do to curb the rise in insecurity that is now not only threatening everyday living of its citizens, but threatens to pull the very fabric of the nation apart at the seam? If indeed there are elements determined to tear this country apart, why have they not been rounded up? How can the country be brought back from the brink it has been pushed to, and its people convinced to put aside the suspicions that has been fueled by this rise in development? This is Politics on Sunday. I am Femi Akonde. Interesting times in the country and worrying too. The week in passing has shown that as Nigerians, we collectively need each other to thrive. And yet there appears to be political actors behind the rising insecurity in the country. And if we are to believe it, they are known to government. So why is it so difficult to expose them? How can we get back to where we were before, when all ethnic nationalities lived in harmony? Will the hard stance taken by President Muhammadu Buhari and his directive to service chiefs to go into the field and secure the nation yield results, especially as he says he will take responsibility for their actions? At this point, can we safely conclude that there will be no negotiation with bandits? Well, I spoke with a seasoned political scientist, Shehu Musa Gaban, to get his thoughts on this issue. Our guest on the program today is the National Secretary of the Social Democratic Party and a prominent political scientist in the country, Alhaji Shehu Musa Gaban. Welcome to the program, sir.
A great pleasure, thank you.
A lot has been going on in the country, in the polity. We have seen violence break out here and there, and also an increase in ethnic clashes, rising ethnic tension. How did we get here?
Well, it's been a very long journey of inefficiency, lack of governance, lack of policy of assimilation, to give every Nigerian a sense of belonging, you know, to create an atmosphere where everybody can be happy that the country belongs to him. There's no segregation, there's no injustice. The executive is up to its responsibility. The National Assembly does what is necessary, enabling laws that will give people a sense of protection, you know, and take away any tendencies to suggest that the laws are for A and not for B. And of course, the judiciary to be discharging its cases in line with fairness, justice, and equity. So in all societies all over the world, when you see agitations, when you see profiling, when you see, is it simply because people are being disconnected with the system, people are being disconnected with the government.
So would you indict the leadership of the country, be it the president, the legislature, and all other arms of government for failing to live up to expectation?
Well, I will indict the leadership, and then also Nigerians are responsible themselves, because if you look at our history, pre-independence and after independence, Nigeria had been trading together across the length and breadth of, even before independence, during trade by barter. It's not as if today that we happen to know ourselves and our differences historically, but we Nigerians easily forget their history and go into emotional and regional and ethnic and religious issues that take away those vital, base that would have given them comfort and ability to move the country forward. Leadership, in the sense that anybody who is elected in a leadership position had an oversight responsibility to ensure there is peace, there's equity, there's justice and fairness in the country. But what we are seeing right now is that any government that comes in, it tilts towards a particular region where the president comes from. This happened over a long period of time. It hasn't started in this administration. It has been on for quite a very long period of time. And that is why I'm always an advocate of taking away any issue of zoning, so that you allow competent Nigerian wherever he comes from, provided he have what it takes. You have the ductility, the temerity, the capacity, to provide leadership for Nigerians, should go for the seat, because the zoning have created so much division within the mindset of Nigeria, so much division, that unless we come up with the current generation that we have that have traveled worldwide, very sound, very educated, that we say first we want to build a nation devoid of ethnic or religious issues. It's the easiest way for you to get out of this and create massive employment that will give everybody a sense of belonging. There will be a food on every family to eat, and then a circle will naturally come in, and people will be to think forward, how to move the country forward. Compared to what we are going through today, compared to, as a result of this lack of proper leadership, banditry, ethnicity, kidnapping, maiming, raping, all these ritual things that have taken over our communities and our country. It's so sad.
Yeah, you just said something that any president in power appears to lean towards his own ethnic group, or appears to favor his own ethnic group. That is the perception around now. Now, this issue we're talking about, ethnic profiling now, people have accused a particular ethnic group of banditry, kidnapping, and involving in some kind of crime, and then also accusing Mr. President of refusing to speak up against this particular group, maybe because they are from his own ethnic group. How do you reconcile all of this?
Well, the Fulanis are at the center of the heat right now because of some few elements within the Fulanis. Fulanis are in millions in populations. And Fulanis have been part of the foundation of Nigeria. And Fulanis have contributed immensely to the development of Nigeria. But because of less than 1% of 1%, it doesn't make a very sound judgment for anybody to say the entire Fulanis are bad, simply because there are bad elements. I've lived in Lagos for years, and I know that there are bad people among the Yorubas, but the brilliant Yorubas that I know are not connected to those bad elements. Or the Southeast, that are my best friends, that have also very bad elements. It is not a justifiable argument for anyone to say the whole of the Southeast people are bad. But in every tribe, you have bad elements. But the ones of the Fulanis have their own foundation. The Fulanis are born with their own system of threat, system of survival. Historically, the Fulanis, the Jews, the Arabs, the Indians are into cattle rearing and so on and so forth. So because of that singular history, they don't do any other thing apart from some of them that have gone to school or are doing other things apart from taking care of their own cows and so on and so forth. So that led to a situation where the country was degenerating. From 1999 it started, during when the governor of Plateau, Daria, that is in prison now, that is initially where all these issues started. The ethnic issues that turned into religious issues displaces thousands of Fulanis and their cows. They lost it. And government have not done anything either to rehabilitate or console or create an alternative for them, which is a responsibility of the government. In a situation of conflict, government comes in to create succor and stability. So these people were left unattended to. And of course, you have a very huge street in Nigeria. you know, that recruit crime and criminalities. And then the Fulanis, given their history, their bravery nature, and so on and so forth, people found them easy to recruit them into crimes and then introduce them into drugs and introduce them into guns for operational purposes as a cartel for generating money and so on and so forth. But because our security institutions are weak, their inability to deal with these modern challenges is extremely very, very low. And that is why when you look at the history of Boko Haram, when Boko Haram started, our security agencies find it extremely difficult to meet up with the challenges of the Boko Haram because the system of warfare Nigeria is not used to. But it has been on the global stage. You know, even the developed society on that have not dealt with non-state actors taking states, you know, frontally. So we are just going into these stages at our developmental stages. And then as time goes on, the security agencies begin to develop methodologies and system and equipment and training to deal with the Boko Haram exigencies. And now we are being faced with banditry that have to do with cattle wrestling, the farmers and herders crisis and so on, which has been also a century issue globally. If you look at the history of America, how cowboys come about, is all about cattle wrestling and so on and so forth. But in America, people who are licensed to carry a gun. Over here, you are not licensed to carry a gun, unless you have the license to do that. So that had a history for years, for decades. But because there is lack of planning in Nigeria, the Ministry of Planning, I don't think is in existence. So the government have short ideas on what to plan for the future of the country in all aspects of our human endeavor. So that deficiency is extremely very high. And so the gap was created. So people key into that, crime key into it, and it's part of what we are paying for today. The stability of Nigeria is in question. The security of Nigeria are in question. So there must be decisiveness on the part of the President and Commander-in-Chief, the one that the Constitution have given a single power and authority to decide and create that deterrence. So unless that deterrence is being created, there's no any other thing anybody can do. You create warlords from one end to the other, from one region to the other, and at the end of the day, it consumes innocent people. That is the consequences. So profiling the Fulanis now because of the situation they find themselves, they are the biggest victim of banditry. They are the biggest victim more than any other person because the Fulanis take away the fellow Fulanis' cows and trade it and go and sell it away. So, and they have no any other source of livelihood. And you know when a man is stranded, he have nothing doing, definitely the devil will take over his thinking. So that's exactly what transpired. And I think the government is beginning to wake up from this reality. We have advised several times without number, free of charge, that these are things that a government, a functional government need to do, to take a very proactive measures to safeguard the citizens.
Okay, you talked about Fulanis being the biggest victim now. The people that perpetrate all of these crimes, some people are saying they are not Nigerians. They come into the country through our porous borders and all of that, and carry out these crimes that has now caused the majority of Nigerians paint a particular ethnic group with a bad brush. What is your own take?
Naturally, these accusations is real, because when you see some of the videos of the bandits that have been arrested, you know certainly they are not Nigerian Fulanis. Most of them speak French, and even the tone of the Fulani they speak is not our own local Fulani dialect. So of course there's an infiltration. But what led to the infiltration? And who is responsible for infiltration? Do we have a government or we don't have a government? Who have the oversight functions and making sure the borders are secured? And if the government have a shortfall of manpower, can they create other sources of protecting the forest, the borders, and the rangers, and so on and so on? So it's about being creative as a leader, as a government, so that you can prevent this sort of things from happening. If you create rangers that are perhaps have a lot of things to do with bushes, with forests as a source of livelihood, you are certainly going to contend this, because if they do not, it will also going to affect them. So it's about leadership that is going to be creative. Instead of trading blames, they have to take full responsibility of what happened. Nobody will take responsibility apart from the government. You know, whatever we do here is to water down the pains of the people and create hope that the situation is not hopeless. Just like what you saw the negotiation yesterday with the traders, and borders were being opened, So these are sort of things that nation goes through. And I'm sorry, every country that is going through developmental stages must go through this. Take the history of Europe. How many years they've been in war before they get to where they got to? We don't pray to be in war. But since we have history that have taught us a lesson how we can run the affairs of a country, these are preventable crises that the leaders must do all they could to prevent it.
We have seen the rise of non-state actors like Sunday Igboho. If you talk about the Southwest situation, we have seen Sheikh Gumi in the north going to the forest to talk to bandits, and the bandits are also talking to him, to telling him what their grievances are. And now Sheikh Gumi is talking about and is proposing an amnesty for these bandits. Do you think that is the way to go? Will that solve this problem?
Well, for me, I like an idea of somebody making effort when the government seems to be powerless, you know, in terms of trying to reduce the genesis of the crisis. If you look at the history of crises all over, you will find out that they are tied to one sort of culture or theology, religion that always subpeddles their excesses. So what Gumi tried to find out or to reach out is to try to see if he can bring some level of peace and stability. Gumi is not a government. He can negotiate on behalf of the government. But as an individual, he tried to contribute. He did not incite them, go and kill and stuff like that. There's a difference between somebody making effort and somebody infuriating the society to go and kill, go and maim, go and take retaliation. And that is the difference between Gumi, Sunday, and then Kanu. And of course, when you look at those key players in the system, it gives government an idea, an additional knowledge on how to deal with the situation. Those that are at the extreme end, government must take a very tough decision in dealing with it. Amnesty is not alien to Nigerian history. It has happened before. So you define what amnesty is. What are the circumstances of giving anybody amnesty? What value does it add? Does it add any value? Just like you gave ex-Boko Haram people amnesty who said they have repented and now went back to the field. So these are issues that the intellectual base of the government, the think tank of the government, and Nigerians should be given a space to contribute. The security agencies that are in the field collecting data about human behavior must be given a priority to generate a very critical information for the government to work with. And again, let me say this. As someone who has been in the government before, our security agencies must be given credit. They are up and doing. They generate intelligence. They generate information. But then again, it's left for the government to utilize those intelligence that have been generated for the good of the country.
Yes, some people say the growing ethnic tension in the country is actually caused by utterances and actions of the political elites. Do you subscribe to that?
I 100% agree to that. You see, Nigeria will only have peace when politicians begin to accept fate, that at a time somebody will be a president, one person will be a governor, and a senator from the 3 senatorial districts make 3, and then other elective positions. But if you said that in the absence of you, everybody should go to hell, this is the consequences. I could remember in 1999, I was among the founding fathers of PDP from the G7. And I know what we did, how we transversed this country. There's no state of Nigeria I have not visited, you know, because we want to restore democracy. Some people went to prison in the course of pursuing democracy. During Abacha's late Rimi and others were sent to prison. I was in that system, and I know how the country was drifting. So people came in, career politicians came in and stabilized the process. Democracy was restored. Now, the same politicians today are the ones that are toying with the country, that are creating ethnic tensions, creating regional tensions, creating religious tensions. Have you ever had a minister who resigned because there was no light to his community, road have not been taken to his community, or the policy of the government is anti-people? Have you ever recorded one in Nigeria? So the conspiracy of Nigerians is by few who are privileged to be in government, who conspired with those that found themselves within the corridors of power to the detriment of millions of Nigerians to deliver the necessary service for the country. You see, we have in our archives, immediately somebody left a cabinet, he will be the biggest critics of the government. When he was in the government, he doesn't have the courage to do that. And these are things that Nigeria must learn to ask questions. Those that are serving in this government today, are they part of our history? Were they there when this crisis was on? Were they part of the campaign of the current administration? Were they part of the promises of the current administration? So what happens? Why are they not speaking out? So these are issues. We all contributed to the stability of the country. We will not be found in a way, on a manner that will compromise the unity of Nigeria. I'm a product of Nigeria. I'm a Fulani man. Those who made me who I am today are different tribes and what have you that imputed into who I am. So my country is my priority, not any ethnic or ethnic base. I don't have an ethnic base. I believe in Nigeria. Nigeria is a beautiful country, and I have been to so many countries. It's only those who don't understand what God have done to this country, the various gift of nature endowed in all states of the Federation. All we need is a critical restructuring to meet up with the basic demand that the country needs today. The population that is over, taking over our society, lack of jobs. You need to create additional police, security police, state police, or whatever you choose to call it, to meet up with the excesses that is going on in the system. It's inevitable thing that we need to go through. Restructuring cannot be avoided.
But can we ever have a time when someone will first be seen, recognized, and even feel that he's a Nigerian rather than belonging to a particular ethnic group?
It's simply because government have not created that. Government have a responsibility. If you create a deterrence, for instance, if you go to all Muslim countries, even if you have a mosque in your house, you cannot choose an imam that will lead that mosque. He has to go through a process of certification, and a certificate will be given to him on what to preach and not what, so that he will not breach the process of peace. So we left our system so porous. Some of the scholars, religious scholars, are not even Nigerians. They come with so many mentalities. If you go and check a large history of Boko Haram, you find out that some of the scholars came from Cameroon and other places and indoctrinated our people. Now, who is responsible? Do we have government? If we have a government, are they doing their job? So unless, like I have said, government create deterrence, if now you graduate, you have the necessary qualification and competency, not just certificates, because there are so many fake certificates in circulation, but someone who have the necessary skill and apply for a job. That job should not be tied to his religion or his tribe or his ethnic base. Once there's this policy and if this policy is being enforced, most of these things you are talking about, it will not be. Take a Shagari regime. We have not experienced it because there was a balance of power and utilization of power across the length and breadth of Nigeria. So this is what Nigeria needs 2023. Nigeria doesn't need a leader whose lineage is to his ethnic or region or religion background. So long as we want to move this country forward, our generation must move from these sentiments and emotions, and we can build a society that we can all be proud of.
The issues that tailing into food blockage and food blockade from the north to the south. Thank God it has been lifted now, but it's got to that point. How do we bring everyone back on the same page? Because this food blockade that happened also further escalated this ethnic tension.
When you look at the history, what led to this escalation, again, is a social media responsibility. You know, pictures are being created, videos are being created and creating a scenario that there is killings going on. If you go to the history, you find out those videos are fake. Again, that have to do with our security agencies overhauling the social media behavior so that you stop creating insinuations that will create security panic in the system. Again, the government must ensure anybody that is found within that perimeter of creating this anarchy must be arrested, must be prosecuted. Those are the deterrents I've been talking about. You have, for a very long time, people who have organized crime against their fellow Nigerians, who have organized genocide against their fellow Nigerians. The files are still dusting in government stores. No action has been taken. White papers has been dusted and delivered. No action has been taken. So people have to take law into their hands when it is clear that their lives cannot be protected by the government. That's what led to people buying arms. It's because the situation is clear. There's a deficiency from the government to deploy capacity and deal with people who are reckless, who are lawless, who doesn't respect the rule of law, who have no respect for human decency and dignity. So these are key elements that a functional government must take a very proactive measures to deal with it decisively once and for all. Once you create a deterrence, like I said, Obasanjo created a deterrence while he was a president, and nobody dared to do anything up to the time he left office. So there must be a deterrence.
From all said and done, it is clear that Nigeria is at a point in history when the next action taken may have an impact on how the country turns out. It matters not at this time whether where we find ourselves is as a result of the actions or inaction of our leaders. What is important is that Nigerians must again find our pulse, which is our unity in diversity, and collectively band to move our nation forward. Well, that's our show this week. Join me again next week when we would again take a look at another aspect of our national discourse. I am Femi Akonde.